Carries. Next is a citizens' input. And if you need to address the mayor and members of the city council on an item that was not on the agenda, excluding personnel items, please come forward to the podium and state your name and your concern. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes. Items will be considered, but no action will be taken at this time.
I just wanted to mention Fifth Avenue will be open Wednesday.
Thank you, Terry. Shortest speech you've ever given.
Mayor,
Applause, yes.
I'd like to give you an update on the Veterans Park fundraising.
Sure.
We're over 175,000 in pledges, and we're over 90,000 cash received. So we'll be going forward with the bid process here pretty quick and getting things going.
Thanks, Lyndon.
Lyndon, do you have any kind of a schedule of moving forward?
We don't. We have a meeting tomorrow morning, actually, to discuss some of that. But possibly, we might be looking at maybe one of the walls or at least getting the water lines and stuff in this fall yet. So,
Nice job.
Any other citizen input? If not, then move on to an update from Jeff Bathke and the local emergency management procedures.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Bathke. I'm the emergency manager for Davidson County. Also with me tonight is Mark Jenigas, and he is the deputy emergency manager. And I've been asked to make this quick. So I won't mention any names. This is the same presentation that I gave last year. Nothing has changed since then. We're required to update different documents. So I just want to hit a few of the highlights, and I sent everybody the presentation that we have to do this for the county commissioners and all 3 of the cities. So over the next couple of months, Mark and I will be going around and doing these. The first thing, our main focus is disaster preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation. So some of the things that we do on a daily basis are, and it's not just for our district, but we deal with fires, floods, tornadoes, fuel spills, any major fatality. And so far we've had 43 incidences. We assist the police department with a lot of their issues as well. So we have 43 so far this year, which is a little ahead of normal, but that's a good thing because we incorporate our search and rescue into those, so it keeps our guys busy. We have a pre-disaster mitigation plan, which is required to be updated every 5 years, and we just did that in November of last year, so we're good for 5 years. And the city did work with us on that, and some of the things that we identified were like an emergency storm shelter out at the soccer complex. And then we put that on our list, and when mitigation money comes down the pipe, then we're able to apply for that. Our local emergency operations plan, I do have that with me if anybody cares to read through it. I think that I don't know if that was in the email or not. I had a little trouble sending it due to size, so I'm not sure if that actually came through or not. What that does is it just explains, we have a plan for everything that could happen. So if we have a flood, you open to the flood tab and it explains everything that we have to do for a flood. Our emergency operations center is in the back of the courthouse behind our offices. Our backup is the fairgrounds, and if both of them happen to be taken out in the event, then we would find an alternative. We have a local emergency planning committee that several of the city employees are on that. We meet second Wednesday of each month in the EOC, and we discuss any issues that have happened over the last month or that are coming that we need to plan for the next few months. And we also hold a mock disaster every year, and in the last few years we've done tornadoes, winter storms, mass casualty events, and the one we're going to do next year will probably be the most fun we've had. We're going to do a dive exercise out at the lake with we're a part of 10 counties in our region, and we're going to have a 10-county exercise that we'll be hosting out at the lake. We will take a car out there, drop the car in with mannequins. The dive team will have to go and retrieve it. As we go down, we call the other dive teams, which are Brookings, Yankton, Beetle County. They hit the road, start coming. by the time they get here, our dive team's exhausted, next one goes in. So it'll be an all-day exercise with multiple dive teams going down to retrieve, it'll be a recovery mission, obviously, in the lake. So pretty excited about holding that one. And just, we do have an incident management assistance team. We have a few of them across the state. And what they do is when we have a disaster, that's all they do at every disaster is they go take care of it. So when we have a disaster, they come in and they will be the ones that do all the dirty work so that you can continue to do your job as a councilman and the mayor and the city finance office, and everybody can still continue to move on. I was with them in Delmont. They do an exceptional job so that the mayor and the emergency manager and the public works people can continue to deal with the disaster and don't have to deal with all the paperwork on the backside. That's what they do. And I just wanted to briefly touch, the state hasn't, or the federal government hasn't put down the new disaster rates yet. They should be coming out any day, but it goes, you have to meet a certain threshold, and it's $1.41 per person in the state, $3.56 in the county. But it's about a little over $1 million that you have to hit. So, and that's just public infrastructure. So like in Delmont, they didn't meet that $1 million, so they weren't eligible for federal funding. And then individual funding is really difficult to get. That's why you have insurance. So that's a tough one for the communities to deal with. And I like to use Delmont because it took out half of their town and they had just put in a new sewer system. So now they're paying for a very expensive sewer system and they only have half the people paying for it because it took all those other ones out. So, and they've got this one last row of houses clear on the west side that they have to keep all those utilities and those streets and everything in there. There's no houses on them.
Jeff, do you know, did Springfield meet the $1 million when they had their?
I don't know if they've come out with that yet. And again, it's just public, so they did not. Yep. So you normally have to have a water tower or a school or something like. Yeah, and you can count the damage to the roads from the debris haul. That can actually count towards it too. So sometimes it takes them a little while to figure out if they do meet the $1 million.
So did the city of Delmont have to use any of their bonding capacity for this or for some of these infrastructure needs?
They didn't have many infrastructure issues, no. They had the water back up the next day. They lost a couple of street lights.
Okay.
It was more of what they will lose long-term from it. And then the last part is for reimbursement purposes, elected officials are asked to do the ICS courses. And I know I sent that out to you guys a couple months ago, and a lot of you have done those or sent me the certificates, but it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and 8, and the 1, 2, 7, and 8 are all online, and the 3 and 4, Mark just looked them up. They're coming up quite often over the next few months in Sioux Falls, Madison, Rapid City, and Aberdeen. They're 2 days each. So, and they usually do them back to back. So they'll do the 300 and roll right into the 400. But you can take just the 300 and then take the 400. I took mine 10 years apart. So you can do that. But they are recommended that you take those. Any questions?
You know, I have a question. I understand about federal relief, but for you to be involved, you know, what's a disaster? You know, you have a fire, it's obviously a disaster for that individual, but at what point does it become, you know, a disaster?
For emergency management?
Where you get involved, right.
Death or multiple structures. So if it's a single home, nobody injured, we're fine.
What about this flooding that we had that damaged homes along 16th Street?
I was involved in that one, more on the sense of Red Cross was out of town, and I was kind of the middleman with Red Cross because we put a few of them up in temporary housing.
So does public safety call you? Does the sheriff call you?
The assistant chief of police called me on that one.
I'm just wondering how you, other than listening to a police scanner, how you find out.
A lot of times we get forgotten, and I have no problem with that because when they're in the middle of an incident, the last thing they're thinking is, oh, we should call Jeff and Mark. It probably doesn't cross their mind. So we have actually changed some things at the PD where now at dispatch, they have a list of things to do, and they just put us on there, and then they look at the situation, and then they might contact Lyndon and say, should we be giving Mark and Jeff a call, and then they'll contact us. So it's a learning curve. I did bring along too, we have a ton of equipment that's always accessible to anyone in the city at the search and rescue building. And if anybody wants that, I gave that, I think I gave it to Steve last year. But
Where is your search and rescue building?
it's at the county highway shop. If you ever want a tour, just let us know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
I was just going to make one quick comment, Mayor, if I could just make a quick comment. Last year, Jeff come up here and made the presentation and said, if this is the Weston Springs tornado or the Delmont tornado, and this is the path that went through Mitchell, it would just be absolutely devastating, the amount of destruction it would have. So the time and effort you guys put in, hopefully you never have to use it, but thank God that you guys spend the time to do that, because it was enormous. I mean, and it would not only, yeah, Steve's got it up here, but it literally, economically, it's going to be a hardship, and not just emotionally and everything else that goes along with it. So we have to have people prepared if this ever does happen.
Okay.
5 minutes on the nose.
Okay. Next, I would entertain a motion for the city council to recess and sit in as a board of adjustment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action to set the date for Board of Adjustment hearing for October 17, 2016. Roxy Ackman and Brittany Royston have made an application for a conditional use permit to operate a home occupation beauty salon in their home located at 718 East 6th Avenue, legally described as Lot 11, Block 4, FM, Green Edition, City of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota.
Move to set the date.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action to set the date for the Board of Adjustment hearing for October 17, 2016. Sue Burris has applied for a front yard variance of 15 versus 25 feet as required for construction of an unenclosed porch at her residence at 210 West 10th Avenue, legally described as south 100 feet of Lot 10, Block 42, Capital Edition, City of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota.
Move to set the date.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Entertain a motion for the Board of Adjustment to adjourn and the City of Council to reconvene in regular session.
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next thing on the agenda is action to approve fire engineering proposal, a request to proceed with fire engineering proposal steps 1 through 3, Lake Mitchell Advisory Committee minutes supporting this request.
Good evening. About a month ago, we were here and we asked, at that time, the council consider approving the fire engineering proposal phase 1. The total cost was around $73,000, of which $3,000 of that has already been committed. During that process, we were asked to do some work to help inform the public, so we had a public forum at MTI on the 21st. I just gave you some very brief information concerning that. Our Lake Committee was present, the mayor, Nathan Powell, our Director of Parks, was present, and about 35 people from the public attended. Mike Sotak, he's a civil engineer, owner of FIRA Engineering. He presented to the public, I'm going to say about a half-hour proposal, very similar to the one that was presented to the council and that the Lake Committee has seen. He addressed mostly FIRA's background, their expertise. He gave his description of our lake's current status, and then he went on to explain FIRA's process. And so And then he answered questions from the audience, as did our lake committee. I believe we had all committee members present for this public forum. So I guess we're here tonight. I guess we'll answer questions if you have, but we would like the council to consider this, consider approving Phase 1 of Fire Engineering's proposal for lake improvement. Do you have any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Just some clarification and update as well on what we're voting on tonight. It's a plan of action which would start the fire engineering Phase 1 process, and that would be steps 1 through 3 that you're all aware of. And then that would also start the plan and process, which would start the Watershed Advisory Council, look at our issues, set some goals, and also get support for what we're doing. The second part would be the technical advisory team would look at the technical and financial resources needed to move this forward. And the third part of that is more internal. There was some questions about economic impact of the lake, and I was able to talk with University of South Dakota, and the Beacon Consultant Group, as a student group, is going to help us out with that. And they're with Dr. Mike Algren, and they've agreed to help us out at no cost for now, and we're going to hopefully have that as part of this process as well. So there's a big phase. There's 3 phases to this outside of the, there's Phase 1 of the engineering, but also 3 areas of the public portion and the public input, and that FIRA has agreed to help us out with in this process. And so that's what we have for now. Those are the updates. But if you have any questions, Joe and I can answer for you.
Well, I was having a conversation this morning, and I was told that Minnesota's standard of parts per billion is 20 parts per billion. Does that sound right? And our goal is 60 to 80 parts per billion. Is that right? Can you just tell me? I mean, it's still, I mean, obviously right now that's a huge improvement. Will it be enough of an improvement, just out of curiosity?
My understanding is that for us to see what would be a functional improvement, we have to get to that 60 to 80 parts per billion. I guess I'm not sure how that relates to Minnesota's, 20 would be great. But our 318 parts per billion where we're at now is, I'm thinking, actually the number FIRA gave us was an 80% reduction. I believe that was the number used. 80% reduction is what they thought we would have to achieve to see the results that, or at least are positive and moving us in the right direction here. So
Well, I'm the one that talked to Susan this morning about that, and I got an email. And the email stated if you got 60 to 80 parts per billion that you want to get down to in the Minnesota, which is the pollution and the Department of Natural Water Resources there, it's between 20 and 25 parts per billion would have excess algae growth. So are we gaining anything? I don't know. Does it going to look lighter green? I don't know.
Well,
Tell me, Joe.
and that's well, I wish I could. The question,
No.
that question has come up, and actually how Mike Sotek is responding to it, I won't speak for him. This is my understanding of what he said, is once they get into it and once they start, processing the data that they have, then we can start setting the goals. But the goals will be set by the city, not by FIRA. And so I think that's the other part that maybe we haven't made that clear enough, but we're the ones who determine how far we want this to go.
With the finances, you mean?
Well, there's a number of factors. If actually the lake performance, to your point, maybe 60 to 80 isn't enough. Maybe we need to do more.
The community-based planning, can you go to that page, Stephanie? It would be 20.
That shows the parts per billion in green,
Okay.
whether it's olorometric, so trophic or mesoeutrophic. And we're at 318, so an 80% reduction would bring us down to 63.6. And that would be that range. So if Minnesota's at 20 or less, they say it's got to be in the olorometric trophic range at a minimum, but at what cost is my question.
That's what the community-based planning's for. It's the local stakeholders that'll be involved in making all these decisions as we move forward beyond the first 73,000 phase one.
So why was 60 to 80 picked in the parts per billion?
Well, my understanding is it's just, that was a number that was selected because that gets us to where we probably see that functional improvement in our lake. Now, and I'm hardly qualified to say what number it should be exactly, but through this whole thing, they remind us that these decisions are going to be made by, the people of Mitchell. FIRA won't tell us what our goal should be. We have to determine what our goal, and as Nathan had stated, we're going to put a technical team together that's going to work with FIRA, and then that's probably how that ends up being determined. To me, what's our goal, that was a question from the public, and I thought it's a great question. They were looking at it from a perspective, are you shooting for what the lake looked like in 1964 or 1956, or, what is your goal? And I really didn't know how to answer that because, well, I don't know what it looked like then, but, to me, the whole answer to that question comes into what we're talking about right now is where do we want the phosphorus level, because that's what will ultimately determine the appearance of the lake, the health of the lake, so.
I believe the 60 to 80 also gets us off the impaired lakes list.
Well, I've listened through meetings and talked to people who know a lot more about this than I do, and I feel confident that this is our best hope for our lake. I feel like if doing nothing is not an option, or like we were told at our last meeting, we'll be dealing with a dead lake instead of an impaired lake. And so with that in mind, I would move to approve the FIRA proposal phase one.
And I second that. I've had a number of people talk to me about it from the public, and I've explained to them, we need to hire a architect. We need to hire somebody with the similar, like you would hire SPN to do architectural work for us for streets and those types of projects. We need to hire somebody that has the expertise to do a project like this and to be able to walk us through it with getting funding and be our liaison for that. We don't have that amongst our lake group, nor do we have it amongst our council.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying, and I'm going to throw out the numbers, and they might not be right. I'm trying to remember from the last meeting, but something like 120 tons of phosphorus came in from outside the lake, and 40 or 60 or something like that was generated by the lake. And then we had something like 541 watersheds. Well, this is my concern. I think the study, and it is a study, will determine this, that, and the other thing. And then we will either be unable or unwilling to solve the problem. I think the city needs to buy up along the river, fence it off, keep the cattle out of there. So can we afford to do that? Will farmers limit their access to water? And so my concern is we'll go through this whole process, and then it'll be millions and millions of dollars, and we won't be able to do anything about it. Or we'll have a solution in front of us that people are not willing to cooperate with us to do. So I guess we've had some things that, you know, cattails and other things that we could try. So I guess unless you're willing to see it all the way through to the end, we might as well not even start down the road. And I just don't think we're going to be able to afford or be able to accomplish going all the way to the end with 541 watersheds and farmers upstream who want to have access to that water.
I attended the committee, the public session, and honestly, I was a little disappointed that there weren't more people there, because I had a lot of people call opposing the program. And it would have been a perfect opportunity for them to ask the questions directly. You know, but we still have that large, at least from the people that contacted me, still said no. And so I'm very conflicted, because I think the lake is sick and needs to be fixed. But if we don't have good community support for it, then we get exactly to your point, you know, we spend $73,000, and then what? And I think it's a very good question, you know. And so, as I was disappointed, I wish there was more people here to talk about why they're opposed to it. Because everybody, well, most everybody that was at the public meeting was very, very favorable, very in favor of it. So it's a difficult decision.
I agree, Dave. I too was disappointed in the turnout. But I think too that once people heard what the presentation was, I think that they, for the most part, were in favor. And I also agree, there is no way, and I think this is as big of the premise for my feeling that this is our way to go, is there is absolutely no way that I can see the city of Mitchell being able to afford this on our own. I don't see us ever being able to fix the lake, Mitchell, on its own. And I don't think then, to follow that up, unless we have a company such as FIRA that has the knowledge, that can work with the state and the federal agencies, the other agencies that work with water development, water cleanup, I don't think we stand a chance of getting it done. And considering the fact that it is an endangered lake at this point in time, how much longer can we afford to wait? I don't want to see one of our biggest assets, our natural resource that we have right here, put aside. And I don't have all the answers, and I don't think we're going to have all the answers until things get turned in and we can have learned more through the process.
One thing to add to that, Bev, too, is, and I want to make sure everybody understands this, but you made some mention of a few numbers here a few minutes ago, Mel, about the 120-some thousand pounds of phosphate. And that is coming in from the 351,000 acres of watershed. There's 126,000, I believe it was, from the watershed, and another 30-some thousand leaching up from the lake. That's what that core sample showed us that we did back in March. So it is kind of a two-pronged problem. So totally, we've got 162,000 pounds of phosphates coming into our lake every year. So a big part of the problem is the watershed. We do need to address that with the buffer zones, holding ponds, buffer strips, whatever it may be. Those are the hot spots that FIRA is going to identify. The other part of the problem is the lake itself leaching up those 26,000 pounds of phosphates. Now, 1 pound of phosphate will feed 500 pounds of algae. So those 162,000 pounds that we're talking about will feed 81 million pounds of algae. So fixing the one problem without fixing the other problem is not going to solve the problem, and you're not going to see it in your lifetime and probably in your kids' lifetime. I really do believe that the proper approach to this is to attack the problem on both fronts, the lake and the watershed, and work toward both of those goals. I think only then are we going to see some significant improvements in the next 7 to 10 years.
And I think the Lake Committee has done everything we've asked it to do. And you know, you've done great work. you know, I'm wondering if the lake is sick enough. And what I mean by that is, if it gets to a certain point, you have an opportunity to get some federal help. But if you intervene before it's sick enough, then it's all on you. So
It is on the
Isn't it
EPA.
already on?
It's already on the EPA's list of impaired lakes right now, and we're just one step away from that lake being shut down from swimming or anything, and that's how close we are. The lake is not going to get any better, it's only going to get worse, and as it gets worse, it's going to get more expensive. We need to keep that in mind.
Well, and the other thing that I want everybody to be aware of is the fact that it is still our secondary water supply. And that is a requirement of the contract that we have with BY, that we maintain the water processing plant, and that we maintain the lake as being our secondary water supply. We have a limit as to how much water we can take from the BY, and so far, BY has been willing to give us all the water that we've needed. However, part of our contract with them is to maintain the water plant and be able to use the lake as a secondary water supply if necessary.
We also irrigate our soccer fields and baseball fields with that water,
That's true.
and kids play on it.
Can you go back over the grant opportunities? And I know after you get through this phase, the $73,000 phase, then FIRA goes after the grant activity. Can you refresh everybody's memory?
Yeah, this phase one, they start the work on just developing the data that they need to get into that planning phase, which would be phase two. And the cost of the planning phase is pretty significant. And typically that's when FIRA starts their grant work. And the grants that they apply for, I believe, are it's the 319 DNR, it's not DNR, it's the EPA 319 grant that they apply for, which will pay somewhere between 60 and 75% of the costs. So if it was $100,000
The study, this phase.
of phase two, not phase one. Phase one is $73,000 out of our pocket.
71,000, because we already did the 2,000 of the core
But
sample.
the
so
total,
it's-
yeah, the total cost of phase one is 73,000. So it's, I guess, to your point now, or to your question about the grants, when we hit the second part of this, that's when FIRA, and they do the grant writing themselves. That's when they go to work and they try to get grant applied funds to help us pay for this phase two. And then also then the final phase, which is phase three, the implementation, then of course they also try to get grant money to help us pay for that. His answer to the question, typically what does it cost? His answer was between 40 and 50%. So if it was I got to do it simple math, $10 million, our cost would be between 4 and 5. And so that's my understanding.
Got a motion to second.
I was going to mention just one more thing, Mayor. I take a look at the quality of people we've got on the Lake Committee. Mark Pitts, John McLeod, Mike Kuchera, Justin Luther, Brian Temple, Chad Nemec, and Joe Kippis. I would consider each one of them very successful individuals. And I know at one point there was not a consensus or even approval to move forward until they worked all the way through the process. And it's taken a whole year of the time they made the presentation to us till now, educating the public, having an open forum, having the report out on our website for people to read. And these people have taken the time, I believe, to try to understand and determine if it is something that is good for Mitchell. But we can't get to the next step unless we take this step. And you might be right, Mel. We may not even, and there may not be the support. But what we do have in front of us, though, is the ability to gather information, if you want to call it a study, to come up with a plan, and use the prior studies that we have in place, which they have them, and they are doing that, consolidating them all together. Why haven't we done anything with all the other plans that have been put in place? It's because we didn't have the professional background of individuals to follow this through and hold our hand. We can't go out and get grants, as Joe talked about. There's no way we can put it, there's nobody that, we've got very good grant writers that are associated with us, but we can't do it on our own. And as you're well aware, sometimes you do need that professional background to help you through. If I think every one of the individuals sat down like these guys did in the last year, I think maybe they would come to the same conclusion. But you can't do that. You got to trust the people that you appoint to the committees. They have to trust us for a decision for us to make what's best for Mitchell. And then from there, we can continue to give information. And in the end, is it worth saving the lake or not? And I guess according to me, or just my opinion, is there's so many cities that would love to have a lake right in their city limits, and we've got that. And it's not going to heal itself. We do know there's issues with the watershed. There's issues with leaching. There's issues maybe with even around the lake. But until we get a full, complete data analysis, I don't know how we're going to make any good decisions. And $70,000 is a lot of money, but to me, it's probably the best plan that we've got in front of us that we've talked about in the last year. I'm going to support this, and I know the majority of the people are not there yet, but if you can take these guys and convince them, I think we can slowly bring the public along too.
Thank you, Jeff.
Just to be clear, just because if we approve this phase, there's nothing that's a guarantee going forward.
Nothing says we have to move forward after 1, 2, and 3, but the thing you got to keep in mind is they're going to develop that plan during that phase 1, 2, and 3. And only when you have a plan will the federal government consider giving us grants. So if we can pay, get 50%, maybe 75% of it up to, and that's the maximum amount we could possibly get to help pay for this. I think we're foolish not to consider it, because how long is that grant money going to be available? And it might be our best shot to fix our lake. I just don't think doing nothing is an option. And like Mike Valley pointed out one day, I'm going to re-quote him again. He says, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. And that holds true for our lake also. Anyway, we got a motion. We got a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Let's do a roll call on that.
Olson,
No.
Rice,
Aye.
Tronis,
Aye.
Robinson,
Aye.
Barrington,
Aye.
Allen,
No.
Sharks,
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
6 to 2,
6 to
yes.
2. Motion carries. Okay, next is to consider approval of.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Next is to consider the approval of an easement agreement, James River Property Group LLC, represented by Attorney Doug Daly, is requesting an easement agreement between them and the city of Mitchell, which will permit an existing sign to remain on city property that is located on the northeast corner of First and Sanborn Boulevard.
Doug wasn't able to make it tonight, but I'll just give you a brief overview of what's going on with this. Basically, American Garage Door over on the corner of First and Sanborn is in the process of being sold. Turns out the survey showed that their sign is actually on city-owned property, so they're requested an easement for the sign to stay there. Doug Daly drafted the easement agreement. I did review it, just made a couple of typographical changes. But essentially, it allows them to keep the sign where it's at, to maintain it. If it ever goes into disrepair, then it can be removed at their expense. And I think that's basically it. The property buyer, I believe, is here if you've got any
Can't
questions.
be replaced though, correct? They can't take that sign down.
It can
and
be
put another-
maintained, but it cannot be replaced. And it's only for advertising the business at that location.
So what other circumstance would there be be, like you're saying, if this sign falls in a state of disrepair, they have to put the sign somewhere else. If they,
Well, either they'd have to repair it, or we'd have it removed at their expense.
and then they could not put it.
And then they would not be able to put a new one back.
So if a tornado rips it down, they got to find a different spot.
Right.
Well, it's a good-looking business, it's a good-looking sign, I'm going to move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action on Resolution 3385, a plat of Lot D1, a subdivision of Lot D in the southeast one quarter of Section 3, T102 North, R60, west of the 5th PM, Davison County, South Dakota.
Just to bring this to your attention, this plat is outside our zoning jurisdiction, but it's within 3 miles of the city, so which is by state statute requires the city planning to, and the city council to review this. But the city planning commission did review it and did recommend approval. My understanding, this is before the county tomorrow, and that he's going through a variance process. It's straight south on 37, there's a little housing development just south, but it's outside our zoning jurisdiction, but within 3 miles, so.
Move to approve. Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next on the agenda is a hearing on the petition to vacate a portion of West 19th Avenue.
I think this is about the third time that this matter's come in front of the council now, and there'll be a few more times where parts come back, but this is actually the, gotta adjust my microphone here. This is the actual vacation of the West 19th, which is not nearly as fun as it sounds. But basically after this, we'll proceed with replatting the land and then do the land swap transaction after that's accomplished. So this is the vacation that's in front of you tonight.
So this is the 19th Street that we've been waiting for. We're just gonna move it a little ways, right?
Yeah, it's being moved a little bit to the south, and it's getting renamed to 20th, so.
Oh. 20?
Yep. And then I think that part goes through, if I'm remembering the map right, so.
And then allow Huck into Alden Street.
Yeah, this part will come off of Ullman, and then there's another street that will go back up towards, yep.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action on Resolution 3386, vacating a portion of West 19th Avenue. This is where myself, Mayor Toomey, and CJM Consulting filed a petition to vacate a portion of West 19th Avenue as part of a larger land swap transaction.
And that's the one we just did.
That was the hearing, though.
Yeah,
Did we have to have a motion to close the hearing? I thought we just closed the hearing there.
I'd say, I think it was a motion to approve
Okay.
the resolution, but I don't mind doing another vote.
Okay. Well, we'll skip that, then go on to second reading and adoption of ordinance 2552, revising bid number 2.
Move to put 2552 on second reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Is there any public comment? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Move to adopt. Second.
Motion carries. Oh, all those in favor signify by saying aye, I'm sorry. Yeah, I lost my place here.
19.
Okay. Okay, no public comment, then if not, roll call, please.
Barrington.
Aye.
Allen. Charts.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Rice.
Aye.
Thomas.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Okay.
Justin, that then can go into effect November 1st again?
20 days after publication, which should be the 10th or 11th.
We're going to try to get it published. That's in the paper on the 11th, so then it would go into effect right on November 1st.
Okay, next is the first reading on ordinance number 2553, an ordinance changing the district classification of lots 1 through 9, block 5, MLC edition in northeast 1/4 of southwest 1/4 of section 28, T 103 north, R 60 west of the 5th PM, city of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota, from R2 single family residential district to the planned unit development, PUD, known as Mueller Lumber Morning View subdivision, and amending ordinance 2430 that previously established the planned unit development district known as Mueller Lumber Morning View subdivision.
Okay, Mayor and council members, first of all, this amendment and rezoning request was submitted to the Planning Commission for their review at their last meeting, and you would see in the minutes that they did recommend approval of this rezoning and code amendment. Just to put this in what's before you, if you take a look at ordinance 2553, you would see there's two sections to this. The first section is actually rezoning a portion of lots 1 through 9, and I believe there's an exhibit showing that's off of South Miller Street that's highlight. Mueller Lumber acquired those 9 lots a few months ago and wishes to rezone them into his planned development district. And then you also have a copy of the existing planned development district where that is encompassed, a map showing what that is, and also what the existing planned development district standards are. Then in section 2 of this ordinance, Mueller Lumber wishes to add some supplemental regulations to it, and you could see that they're listed as A, B, and C. In essence, they're kind of construction standards. So again, there's just 2 things with this ordinance. One is including lots 1 through 9, block 5 in the PD, and then also incorporating these standards, amending his PD with these standards. So this is first reading before you. And so that's how a planned development district is unique, because what that is you identify a particular development, and they have their own uses, their own setbacks, and so forth, and it's only unique to that particular development. However, to change something within that development, it's just like a rezoning process. You go through the amendment process, and you go through the hearing that, and so that's why we're here. So that's what it is. Mr. Mueller is here if you've got more specific questions about his development. Again, the Planning Commission did recommend approval.
So Neil, just as a kind of a little bit of a sidebar, but one of the people who disapproved
Yes.
this was asking about an alley that was supposed to be built to the south of their property. It looks like they live on Norway.
Yeah.
Can you tell us anything about that?
All I did is, this was a letter that came in after it just came in very recently, and so I supplied you a copy of it. I'm not 100% sure what happened there. I mean, that development, when Mr. Mueller put this development together, and I believe this would be on one of those houses on Norway. I'm not 100% sure which one, wherever 1715 is. And I'm assuming they're referring to something to the south.
But they didn't show up at the hearing?
No, this letter came in after the notice came.
Well, and this, from reading it, it's something from, when Carter was president.
Yeah, so unless she's here, I don't want to misrepresent her. If that party is here, then I want to make sure that theirs, but no. Again, Mr. Mueller is here if you've got more specific questions about what we're proposing.
Could you come up and just tell us a little bit about what you're planning to do?
Our original ordinance went through, I think, in March of 2014. And what we're doing is we're adding the 9 lots that we acquired on the south side, on the west side of South Miller Street. We bought 9 lots from a party, and we would like to include them into this planned development.
And will those just be single-family dwellings, or what are you, they're
Yep,
just going to be?
they're zoned the same as what's on the planned development, exactly the same. And the second part of it is just to clean it up a little bit. We're trying to eliminate what we call a galvanized pole building in somebody's backyard. That's the A, B, and C of the supplemental regulations.
I move to approve on first reading.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Motion carries. 21 is the first reading on ordinance number 2554. It's an ordinance amending MCC 6-1-4, parentheses A, on unreasonable animal noise.
Well, I'll give you just a brief overview here. City's received a number of complaints on barking dogs and other animal noise. And really, the PD's shoelaces are tied together, I mean, with the ordinance that we have in place right now. So we're left in a position where, you know, we can get a complaint, we've got an ordinance in place, but there's really nothing that we can do with it because of the way our ordinance is phrased. And the reason that is because our current ordinance makes reference to these decibel levels that you have to measure, and it makes it difficult to prosecute if you can't go out there and actually get these readings. And, you know, a dog can be barking for an hour at a time, decides to quiet up for the 10 minutes that an officer's on scene. So it's just unrealistic to think that an officer is going to be able to get those readings to actually prosecute under the current ordinance. So the proposed ordinance goes back and tries to cure that defect by taking those decibel levels out of the equation, and it tightens up the language a little bit to put people on better notice of what exactly is prohibited. Now, most people know what is and is not unreasonable, but that is something that the judge would eventually need to decide. And I kind of feel like I'm rambling at this point, but I think the statute speaks for itself. So
just out of curiosity, I remember having calls from people out by the lake saying there was a neighbor's dog that was barking incessantly. The officer went out, the dog wasn't barking. So then it kind of becomes a little bit of he said, she said, or, you know, who do you believe in? So how is this enforceable? What if the dog owner said, that wasn't my dog, or, you know?
Right. Well, you can also utilize citizen complaints, neighbor complaints when you're basing that, but under our current ordinance, I don't know of a whole lot of neighbors that are going to have decibel meters out there either to get the measurements. So,
but I still, it's a tough thing to enforce. It must be.
I do agree that it still will be difficult to enforce, but it's something that can be utilized.
So how do you do a neighbor complaint?
What's that?
So how do you do? What do you do? Just call the patrol officer, tell him I got a complaint, you put a red tag on him, or what?
Well, Lyndon might be able to speak a little bit better to that process.
When somebody calls us, we respond out there, and we'll try and determine which animal was making the noise, if it was. Sometimes we have to sneak back into the neighborhood. After we leave, the dog may get let out again. It does notoriously happen. We show up, the neighbor quickly puts their animal inside the house. We don't hear the barking, and we can't issue the citation. We do have to witness it in order to issue the citation. Right, right. Now, the neighbor could come in and sign a summons and complaint, right, Justin?
That's correct. Yeah.
That would allow for this. Even if we don't, Justin could initiate that with the neighbor, and they could file a summons and complaint and go forward that way.
So really, the best thing is for the person who's being bothered to record it. Would that count?
It would help. It would be evidence. I mean, if they record it, video and audio, that would sure help.
So just, we're kind of replacing a combination of two ordinances that we know we can't justify unless we actually go out and have a decibel meter, and replacing it with one that we aren't sure if it will stand up, but we think it has a better chance.
I'm fairly confident that it would stand up to a challenge. Really, the language, if you take a look at my agenda request form, I kind of tried to explain in there the language that we have right now if you take that standing alone without reference to the decibel ratings, it's unquestionably too vague to stand up to constitutional scrutiny. But with the new language that I brought you with this proposed ordinance, I think that it's specific enough that it will hold up if it's challenged.
You know, years ago, right across the street from me, there was a basset hound. And I'd be inside the house, and that thing would sound so pitiful. You'd think, what are they doing to that thing? And you look out the window, you're ready to dial 911, report animal cruelty, and it's chasing a ball, just happy as a clam, you know. So, I mean, dogs bark. They get territorial. People walk on the sidewalk, and they bark for that little bit that the person is there, or, you know, whatever the case may be. I mean, how do we decide what's unreasonable?
Right. Well, that's the main challenge, and really all I can say is that's the reason that we have the judge. That's why the judge hears the case and determines if it is reasonable or unreasonable.
Lyndon, how many complaints you get a month? Obviously, your reports, you do chase a lot of dogs in this town.
We do. I don't have the exact number.
There's quite a few.
Yeah, I mean, it's common to get calls on dog barking.
Lyndon, is it early morning, late at night thing, or is it, you know, somebody's dog is barking at 4 o'clock in the morning? I can see
It
that.
can vary. It seems like it's more at night when other people are home, you know, when it's more offensive, but we've had them all hours of the day.
There's situations where people put their dogs out because maybe they've gone away for the evening or whatever the matter may be, they're out of town, whatever, and the dogs are unhappy. They want to be with their owners, they want to get back in, whatever, you know, their dog complaint is, and the dogs bark, and they can sometimes bark incessantly for literally hours.
You remember a few years ago, Justin wasn't here, but the hunting dogs that were outside and they were just baying all the time? And, you were on the council, you know, some of us were on the council, and the thing was, these dogs were hunting dogs, and they were kept in cages outside, and they were just baying all the time. And then, you know, they'd throw a blanket over the cage or something when the cops showed up, and then they wouldn't bark, and, you know.
Yeah, they were the ones over by
Yeah.
Hitchcock Park.
Is there anyone,
Go ahead and make a motion to place on first reading.
Second.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is action to award janitorial supply number 2016-42, janitorial and a housekeeping supply contract. Just to give a little background on this, I had collected here probably 3 months ago a contract or supply usage list from all the department heads in our city. And what I did with those quantities, I put them together because everybody was buying something from probably several different vendors. No one was buying from any one vendor. And even under state statute, it says any group of supply products of any type that totals over $25,000 should be bid out. So this is no secret that I said that I was going to do this probably from day one. And it's not just the janitorial and supply contracts, but the next thing I want to look at is the office supply and office supply type equipment. You get that under some type of a contract. One thing that we had brought up to our attention at the last audit that we had was that this is one area where the city was failing, that we did not have a contract. So we did bid it out, and what the contract should do, from my calculations, is probably save anywhere from $20,000 to $25,000 a year. And so this would be a 3-year contract that I'm proposing that we award to JCL, which is Janitorial Closet Limited out of Sioux Falls, as they were the low bidder. Sure.
Before the council would consider that, my name's Don Peterson, I'm an attorney, and I'm here with Tim Jones of Jones Supply Palace Cleaners. They were one of the bidders as well. There were 4 bidders, and Tim has some concerns about the bid, and would like to discuss that with council and the mayor. And so I'll start it out. I'll turn it over to Tim because he's the expert and can kind of talk about it. But did all the council members get a copy of the bid sheet? So you've all seen that one. So as the mayor said, the purpose of having the bid was to receive competitive bids for the janitorial supplies for the city of Mitchell. And there's, we certainly, Palace Cleaners has no issue with that. They have been providing supplies to a lot of the departments, if not all of them, for a number of years. There were 4 bids submitted on the specs. One of the bids, now there was 199 items to bid, and some of them were very, very specific on the quality, the name of the product. Some were very nebulous, like garbage cans, things like that, that you don't know what you're bidding to. So you don't know if bid number 1 was bidding the same thing as bidder number 2 or 3 or 4. So there were, and Tim will talk about that in more detail. One of the bids of the 199 items left 106 of them blank, unavailable. Second one left 43 of 199 blank. And so in looking at these, my question to Tim was why? Why would that happen? And his explanation is that the bid specs were hard to submit bids to. As I said, some of them are so general. When it asked for a plate, a spoon, a fork, and a glass, were you looking for plastic? Were you looking for a 12 ounce? And it just didn't say. So you don't know if someone was bidding apples to apples or oranges to oranges or oranges to apples. Additionally, some of them were very specific. And on the specific ones, it's Tim's position. And of course, it's hard to tell from these bid specs exactly what happened. But Tim, being in the business, says it would be impossible for any one bidder to be able to bid to all the specific specs because each one of them goes to a supplier, and not every supplier in the state or in the region can provide all these items. And as such, Tim had a number of variances. And the reason he had the variances is because his supplier didn't have that product. Now, the bid was darn specific that said that if you bid an alternate, it has to be of equal quality or better, and you have to say that you're bidding that. So when I looked at this, I looked at bid number 1, and all the unavailable may be because their supplier couldn't provide that product. May have been the same for bid number 2. Now, Tim had a number of alternates, and it's because he couldn't come up with them. Now, JCL, which was the low bid at this point, didn't have any. And that just seems to be incredible or very unlikely that he could, because nobody else could. In fact, Tim will address some of that, but he has concerns that he has a bid on 38 and 39 for the Angel Soft toilet paper, and I'll get down to the detail. But he called the supplier and said, what does that cost? And JCL Solutions bid to that is actually lower than what it would cost him. And so Tim's concern is, well, I bid Angel because that's what the spec said. If I was going to bid an alternate, it'd have to be of equal value or quality, and I don't know that that's what you're getting. And so we think that it's possible and we would suggest that 3 bids did not comply with the bid specs. And basically that's pointing out that, hey, I can't get this particular product, so I'm giving you an alternate, but I'm telling you what the alternate is, and I'm telling you what the price is. And it seems, I guess, incredulous that JCL could get every single item that's listed on here, and yet be as it was, because no one else could. The other 3 didn't come close, and be that much lower than Tim. So I'm going to turn it over to Tim and to get into some specifics. But what we're going to ask the council is we're going to ask them to reject the 3 bids as non-conforming and award the bid to Jones Supply.
Good evening, and thank you for your time here. This could take a little while. Going through these specs, there are over 40 items that just throw up flags. And I'm going to start out with just a few of them. If you get tired of listening to them, you'll get the hint. So we're starting out, everybody has the sheets in front of them. Item number 18 and 19 are vacuums. But the problem is you don't know what these are bags that go to the vacuum, but you don't know what vacuum it is, okay? If you go to item number 24, it says paper towels, 16 big rolls. Of what? Of what? Is it roll towels? Is it household towels? Is it shop towels? What is it? Item number 30, 60 white roll towels. What size? Is it an 800? Is it 600? Is it 500? No guess. Here's an item that is really a little bit confusing to you. So if you look at item number 34, it says jumbo 1,000-foot roll towels, 12 per case. That's a perfect spec. Below it says Scott's JRT two-ply coreless toilet paper. And that is a much better quality toilet paper than the item in the above. There's a difference between a core and no core in toilet paper. Your cores are terrible. The coreless is a better product. But if you look at that, JLC bid the same price for both of them. So they substituted it. And they didn't list in the gray area here that they substitute. So they basically took two items together and bid them. And also, if you look at this coreless, there's no square feet on it. I know what it is because it's my product, but they can put in anything they want. And that bid alone on that item was $830-some difference. So there you go. Item number 37, what size? Next page, item 46, 47, 48, 49 is a dilution system. You can't bid out in dilution systems and know if you've got the cheapest things. A dilution system is when you bring this product in, it's a concentrate, and you make bowl cleaner and you make floor cleaner. And I guarantee you can't, that's not apples to apples. He doesn't have access to this. These specs here are only available probably through Heartland and through me. Those items right there. No. 57, a toilet brush. Bid it. I mean, how many different toilet brushes are there? 64 is also a dilution system. 74, squeegee for a window. What size? That could be a 12-inch, 24-inch, 18-inch. Item number 76, sponges, bid sponges. I mean, you know how many sponges there are out there? And what size? You can get a sponge this big, you can get sponges that big. 85, Swifter dusters. What size? Dust mop handle. What kind? Next item, dust mop handle. What kind? Is it fiberglass? Is it wooden? Item 87 and 88 should not even be in here. And the reason I know that, I used to be in the laundry business. And these are rentals. It says 2 24-inch dry dust mops rental. You do have a rental system, but the custodian, this end doesn't cover. You have to bid that out with laundry people. That doesn't even belong in here. 88 is also another dust mop. It needs to be rented out. That's through a laundry system. Excuse me. Next page. Item number 93, a 20-ounce wet mop. What kind? Is it cotton? Is it poly? There's all kinds. I mean, you have to have specs to these. Gator mop, item number 95, Gator mop with brush refill. Really don't know what it is. I think it says map, but I think it's a mop. And if it is a mop, what size? Bid a shop broom. What size? That is item number 96. Item number 98, bucket, black bucket with handle. Item number 110, cups, napkins, plates, and forks. A cup can be 1 ounce, it can be 2 ounce, it can be a souffle cup, it can be a coffee cup, it can be plastic, it can be paper. Napkins, the next item, napkins, it could be a lunch napkin, it could be a 15 by 17 napkin, it could be express napkin, hundreds of them. Plates, what size plate? Is it foam? Is it plastic? Is it 3 compartment? Is it a 6-inch? Is it a 9-inch? Is it a 10-inch? Don't know. Fork, it can be medium weight, heavy weight, a dispenser napkin, or a dispenser fork coming out, could be wrapped, different weights, no quantities. Item 148, Deb foam wash, what size? Item 152, Era laundry soap, is it powdered? Is it liquid? ToxyOxyClean, is it powdered? Is it liquid? Item 154, laundry detergent, how much? They usually come in 50-pound, but I'm sure there's 100 pounds, there's dryer sheets, what size? Shout stain remover, is it gallons or is it quarts? Clorox wipes, 161. How many in a container and what size? Because they make all different sizes of them. Getting back to the laundry services, item number 174, 6 3x5 entrance mats, that's a laundry bid. That's not anything to do with us. That's something, a lot of you have businesses, you get your mats changed, that is not, should not even be in here. Item number 175, 176, 177 are floor mats that you would purchase. You need to know what kind, what's the mill, is it plastic, is it rubber, is it vinyl? It makes a difference. You have item 178, 179, and 180 air fresheners. How many ounces in a can? 185, quick change frame, what size? 12-inch, 18-inch, 24-inch. 187, Lysol disinfectant. Is it gallons? Is it quarts? 188, Glade air fresheners. How many ounces? And that's basically the 40 items that I looked at. I'd also like to point out, I tried to receive more information than just this, because I wanted to see what the competition was bidding, and I was not allowed to see that information. I've asked for it several times and did not get it. But this is what I wanted to look at. If you look at my gray items here, those are all items that I changed either to better quality or we didn't have access to it. If you look at all the others, not one other company had a gray line. So we're being, if you take a look at my specs, you'll see that my specs are very, very definite and to the T. And I guarantee you that because my wife put them together and she spent a lot of time on it, where none of these had any of that. There is no way that you could bid 190, what was it? 199 items and not have an order change. It just does not work. I'm done. Do I have any questions?
So, Tim, when you did you get some clarification when you were going through there, or did you use your best guess being in the business for a number of years of what product that we were kind of asking?
Well, a lot of it was a guess, and I did come to the city 2 times. And I did discuss my concerns about this. This was a mess, and it never got anywhere. I was basically just said, wing it.
Jim, when you stopped in my office twice and you asked me some questions, I thought I answered all your questions.
I said 100, I went to Deb's. You referred me to go back to Deb, and I give her 12 that I was concerned of, that I had a hard time guessing about, and then I came back with 4.
Let me kind of tell you what the process was here on this whole bid process. Like I said, it started out with me asking all the department heads to give me a detailed list of all their products, and I wanted as much information as they could give me. I said I wanted to know, for example, like on toilet paper. You know, I did this for 38 years too, negotiating contracts for supply and janitorial contracts at the hospital for many, many years. And I know there's a lot of differences in plastic liners and a lot of different variations in toilet paper, 1,000 single ply versus 500 sheets 2-ply. I asked every one of the vendors when we release these bids to them, if you got any questions, you need any clarification, come talk to me. So now when the bids went out, they came back in. You were in this room when we opened the bids that day. I didn't look at them. They were given to Deb and to Tim McGannon. Tim McGannon and Deb's, I know Tim spent several hours going through it. Deb says she spent 2 days going through this thing, clarifying the descriptions, matching things up, making sure we were talking apples to apples as much as possible. It's not going to be 100% perfect. This is the first time we've ever had a supply contract like this. So it's going to take some time, and that's why on this contract, we're probably going to do another review in a year to make sure that, you know, that we have to tweak it, we can tweak it. But after Tim McGannon spent several hours going through this thing, he took a line, he drew a line through 27 items. I can tell you what those 27 items were. And the reason why he crossed the line through those 27 items was because there was no, there was so much variation from what we had initially asked for on the bid. So since they were variations from the bid, he crossed the line through them. And he totaled them up, and then when he got done with it, he gave it to me, and I went and I spent another 7 to 8 hours going through this, totaling up what he totaled up. My numbers came up with what he came up with. And initially there was $32,000, $32,064.39 on the JCL bid. On the Jones bid, there was $35,251.80, which was a 9% variance in the bids. Then I went back, and I spent, like I say, 6, 7 hours doing this. Went through those 27 items that Tim crossed off. And I looked at the ounces, and I looked at the sheet counts, you know, like toilet paper. One of the things we wanted to do was make sure that we're not getting bids on 7 different brands of toilet paper like the departments were using, because they were using half a dozen different brands. You're not going to get your best price by buying 7 different brands of toilet paper or 4 different brands of plastic liners or 10 different brands of paper towels. You consolidate and try to go with one brand. That's where you're going to get your maximum. And you know this, being in the business, you're going to get your best dollar or your best bang by the volume commitment that you make on any particular category of products. So that's what we were trying to do, is get every vendor to bid on this, on a very similar brand, whether it be Charmin toilet paper, 500 2-ply, whether it be Northern, whatever it was. We wanted one brand of plastic liners, one brand of this, one brand of that.
So, Mayor, can I tell me where those brands are listed? Because I certainly don't see them on here. Was there something else given?
I mean, when you bid Scott JRT Carlos toilet paper, that's telling you exactly what, it's like
Sure, but
bidding
some
a
of these
one,
other
yeah.
things, yeah.
And, you know, and then the line before it is another one. Well, that's 2 items. If you want one item, then put it on the spec sheets.
Right, that's my question. Was there more? Like, I have bid projects before, so I know how it goes. And if you don't have, I mean, I know the process that you go through. If you don't, you know, if I don't sell a certain brand, I can show that there's a direct comparison with another brand and they accept or reject it. But I don't see that you have, you know, if this is the only thing that you're given, this would be extremely difficult, it seems to me.
Well, and I can go one step further than that, Susan, and Tim pointed that out, and I think it's, you know, fairly important, but at 33 and 34, I think it is, there's a 34 and 35, 34 and 35. They're looking for jumbo roll, 1,000 rolls, 2-ply, and then the Scott JR. Now, if you look at Tim's.
Which line are you on right now?
On 34 and 35.
34 and 35.
Yeah. And if you look at JCL, he's got those identical, and that's impossible. They can't be the same. You look over at Tim's, and he's got them at different. And so, and he had to substitute, and he showed that. So it seems to us that JCL, A and B and Heartland looks like they tried to comply, and if they didn't have the product, they just said unavailable. Tim went to the extra work, he and Deb went to the extra work of, if they didn't have the product, they went, and according to the bid specs is what you had to do. You had to show your substitution and you have to say that it's of equal or better quality. And JCL, it just bid straight down the line. So you're being asked to believe that every single one of these items that are on here were bid by JCL exactly.
I would assume on that when they're down on 34 and 35 where he bid exactly the same price, $27.95, he's bidding on one brand. He's not bidding on the 2 different brands as spelled out there, because we don't want 2 different brands. We want one brand. We want consolidation.
But your bid has to.
Not grayed out.
Pardon?
They didn't bid on what was.
Then we should be
I
able
think
to
that's their
reject them.
point. That's their point, is it's not grayed out. So if we can't trust that one, how can we trust any of them?
Yeah, and I don't know what kind of conversations Deb had with JCL or any of the vendors on these when she was clarifying these specifications. I don't know. But all I know is.
Highly suspect. I cannot imagine that JCL had every single product exactly, needed no substitutions. That just seems like more than a coincidence.
Well, I've had purchasing people report to me for over 30 years, and when 3 out of the 4 have deviations and one's perfect,
Totally.
And we're
That's
only,
exactly
you know, we're
Well-
only about $2,100 apart in the total.
You know, I can't speak for JCL what they did, but, you know, if you guys want to table this, and at the next meeting, we'll have JCL here.
I don't know.
Let them answer the questions.
Let me just tell you one other thing that occurs to me is that this isn't a product that's ever been bid before. You said that yourself. My concern is we have a local vendor who has provided the city with all of these supplies for years. The thing that I want to point out above and beyond just the price, and you're right, you were talking about $2,100, is the service that we receive from these people at the drop of a hat. They're so local that if the Corn Palace is in the middle of a concert and they need toilet paper or paper towels, they know who to call and they can be there at the drop of a hat. And in my mind, that kind of service is worth way more than $2,100.
Well, I'm going to say one thing that it wasn't $2,100 when I went through those 27 other items that Tim had crossed off, and I tried to cross-reference more the best way I could by doing a cost on mills versus one mill size versus another mill size, or 1 ounce size versus another ounce size. I then came up with a difference of just on those 27 items, 31% variation in price cost. So the total, adding those 27 items back in that Tim took out, I came up with $40,745 on JCL, and with Jones, I came up with $46,613.04, which is a 14.4% variation. So 14.4% difference. Now, my question then is if I'm going to, go by these figures, is $6,000 worth it to the city or not? When I look at a contract, and I've always said this to my vendors, is that, there's 3 things you look at in the awarding of any contract, and it's price, service, and quality, and not necessarily always in that order. Because you can get the best service in the world, and you get the best quality in the world, but if you can't get the product in, the service stinks, what good is the price? Price doesn't mean anything if you don't have service and quality.
Can I say something?
Sure.
We service you 5 days a week, and I'm on call 7 days a week. If I'm in town and you need something on a Saturday or Sunday, if we got a state event at the state amateur baseball tournament, if we have a state event, which has happened, I service all my customers 7 days a week. And I've done that for the city since we've done business.
Justin, what are our legal options here?
I think if I can jump in too.
Yeah, I'd like to ask our city attorney what our legal options are here.
Actually, I'd like to hear Don's take first.
Okay?
There's state statute on the bid law, and they have to be accepted in so many days when they were open. And this is, I think we're 2 days from the deadline. So if you don't accept the bid tonight, then you're going to have to rebid the whole project. So that's my understanding of the law. And so that's why we're asking that you reject the 3, because I don't think, three just don't conform. And Jones's does, and the price is close. And the one that gets handed out, it's about a $2,100 difference. So if the mayor's talking about a different price, I've never seen it, and I don't know what he's talking about, because it's not in the tabulation sheets that were handed out.
They are in the tabulation sheets, Don. If you look at, like I said, you take those, mark these numbers down, if you would, please. Number 5, 9, 17, 20, 29, 32, 40, 41, 42, 49, 66, 68, 69, 76, 107, 112, 122, 126, 140, 147, 149, 152, 160, 169, 193, 195, 196. Those are the ones that Tim crossed off. Now, Tim's not here tonight, so I can't really speak for Tim. JCL's not here tonight, so I'm not going to speak for them either. Those are the ones that Tim crossed off.
All right.
I put them back in, and they are on your sheet.
All right.
So if you figure those into your sheet and total these up, and if you take the mills versus mills, ounces versus ounces, sheets versus sheets, and single it out to the fraction of a penny like I did and then multiply it back out again, I came up with a $6,000 difference of 14.4%.
Why were those crossed off? I don't understand what the meaning of these, they were crossed off.
Kim says there was no similarity between what JCL was bidding and what Jones was bidding, since both of them
Then
were
doesn't
so
that tell me,
far off.
does that tell me that the bid spec should be thrown out because they're not close enough to even be bid?
You have to ask him that question, why he did that. That's why I put him back in, because I wanted to see what the difference would be.
I'd have a problem with
How many items were that?
27.
So 27 out of 200, so 13% of the bid specs are no good. So how can you award it to anybody?
Well, this gets back to my original question, which is, I've been here where we actually had to take the more expensive bid because of the vagaries of bid law. I understand the argument you're making, and I accept the argument, but under state law, are we able to reject the 3 of the 4, or do we have to reject them all and start all over again?
I think my recommendation would be is if you're taking what's been said here at face value and the bid specs were impossible to work with, then the proper action is to reject all the bids and rebid.
But you didn't have any problems on yours, did you, Tim, or not? No problems on the Jones Supply. but
Well, we've
the other
also
four
got
do.
JCL here that's purporting to comply with all the requests. Now, they're not here tonight to defend themselves, and I don't know
Well,
their
we
side.
can just go take some more business out of town. We just did it with an engineer firm. Now we're going to do this too. That's real good.
Well, and I think JCL is an untried entity.
Not really, because they've done this before here.
My point is, for a 3-year contract, how many 3-year contracts have we awarded in that regard?
In my opinion, I do not trust JCL's bids because it just, once again, I look at that and I go, really? Either they had insider information or they're pulling a fast one, because there's no way that they were able to do this 100%, 199 items without any substitutions. That just literally makes 0 sense. I don't trust them.
I could be incorrect in this statement, but I don't know. My understanding is that JCL has had the business with the city in the past, so they're not an unknown entity. They are familiar with the products that the Corn Palace use. They are familiar with the products. In fact, they are the company right now that is servicing our senior center, our James Valley Community Center. That's where they get all their products from. They get it from JCL out of Sioux Falls. So you can't say JCL is an unproven entity.
I accept everything that you've said. But I think if we don't reject all the bids, I think it opens the city up to a violation of the law and a civil lawsuit because we have not accepted the lowest bid. And I understand what you're saying about local service, and I agree with that, but that doesn't matter under the bid law.
I have to question, I noticed several areas where JCL or different ones have change in original bid quantity. If there's a change in the original bid quantity on one and not in the other, what do we have for reference to know which one actually runs cheaper and which one?
What are you
does
looking
not?
at? Which line item there, Dale?
Well, anything that's blued is a change in original bid quantity. And I don't know what the comparison is then on that. I don't know how to, I think I have to agree with Mel that I don't think we have enough apples to apples here to make a decision.
My understanding of those blue ones, not that one, again, Deb's not here either, but my understanding on that one, because I remember on those batteries specifically, I even asked JCL on that one myself. I says, what are you bidding on that one there? And they were bidding on a pack of 9-volt batteries, 4 batteries to a pack, and that's what their bid was $382. So I even questioned on some of these items to make sure that I understood what quantities they were talking about. So that way, when I broke it down, especially on those 27, and as an example, JCL, and I wrote it down here, it's number 5, Duracell batteries, 12 to a package equals $15.26. So there was $1.27 each by 16. $1.27 by 16 came up to $20.32. Where with Jones Supply, for example, in item number 5, it was 4 packs a year. It was $7.63 for 4 batteries. So $7.63 per 4 pack. So 4 times $7.63 was $30.52. That's how I distinguished the price difference between those 2 items and the batteries. That was one that I needed clarification on. When I went back through these 27 items that Tim crossed off, I wanted to see what would we be doing if we broke it down by the each and multiplied it out by the annual usage. What would be the annual usage for Jones Supply? What would be the annual usage for JCL?
Okay.
That's how I did that.
Okay, so in the amount, you have reconciled with that amount,
Right.
those differences then. Okay, then I have one other question. And I have to guess at this one. I look at number 40, 41, 42. I see we have Angel Soft 2-ply, Quilty Northern 2-ply, Charmin 2-ply. My guess is that we're bidding all of them, and then we can make a decision as to which one comes in at the lower bid price and put everybody with the lower bid, whichever one that would be out of those 3. Is that how it would be done?
Right. Because the 41 that you point out there on the Northern 2-ply from JCL was 96 rolls to a case. And there, I think it was 2 cases a year at $43.66 for 96 rolls. That came out to $87.32 for JCL. The same quantity converted over to a 24-pack, double rolls would be $18.24 for Jones, and $18.24 times 8 then came up to $145.92. So I broke that cost down by the roll and multiplied it up by annual usage.
Okay.
The only accurate way to do it.
So if we accept the JCL bid, I think you guys should come after us. If we accept your bid, I think JCL should come after us. So my question is there any way that we can reject all the bids and just kind of forget we did this and go back to the old way? Or now that we bid it once, are we under an obligation to actually go through and say, look, we want Bounty towels, 200 rolls, 2-ply, you bid that? Because it seems to me we were not specific enough in our request when we sent this out to bid.
Yeah, the council's under no obligation to
Can I
award the contract.
Can I add one thing? You said there wasn't any specific description of these things, Mal. That's not correct, because
Well,
I got all the invoices.
The items
from
that
Michelle.
were listed were not specific. I mean, there are many items that were, like the Scott thing that you mentioned, that were specific. But when you're talking about,
He should have had the least questions, I think. I'm sorry, Tim, but you should have had the least amount of questions as far as specifications and what was being bid, because everything pretty much other than the rec center was being purchased from you. That's why I had a problem with you when you were asking me, well, what do you mean by this and what do you mean by
I'm sorry,
that?
when you bid something, you have to be specific in the bid requirements so that the various vendors can bid it. So if I'm bidding, if I say I want you to bid toilet paper, I need to know the quality toilet paper and how much toilet paper you have. You can't just leave it to people to kind of accept that they know what the amount is. And from the items that were described here, there are many items that didn't meet it. Now, if we want to award the bid on the specific items, I think we could do that. But if we're going to do all 199 items, we've messed up.
If you're the current vendor, though, I mean, let me understand this. If you're the current vendor and we get a list from you, I asked you for a list of all the products that all our different departments are purchasing from you. You gave me the list, and I said, I want as clear of specifications as you can give me. I want the brand name. I want the count per case. I want the count per package. I want the ounces. I told all the department heads that. So when you send me your list, make it as detailed as you can get it, because I want to make sure that if I'm going to get a bid back from these vendors, that it's going to be something very close to or similar to what you're currently using.
If we're happy with what he's been providing, why did we put this out to bid? That's my question.
A couple-
I want to know why this needs
A couple of reasons, because we were buying from 8 different vendors, and that you consolidate all your purchases. You get your best price from bulk quantity.
And I think we should have given it all to our local vendors that's been providing it.
Well,
I would like to.
you do that. You don't do that.
It's certainly not his responsibility to provide us with a list. That's not his responsibility, in my opinion.
Well, why not?
Why not?
Yeah, why not? If I want to make sure that I'm going to assure what these guys are they're going to get the same brand that they've been using, and I want to see what they've been using. I want a detailed list of what they're using.
Can I answer that? Go to item number 29. It calls for a 600-foot roll tall. Is it Georgia Pacific? Is it Kimberly-Clark? Is it SCA? Doesn't say anything. So how do you know? The towel that you are using now, the towel you are using now is a very, very high quality. And I work with all department heads, and some use it and some don't. So I work for each department head to get their needs. So.
What were you given, Tim, when you were asked to bid on this? What were you given? Were you just given sheets like this here? Was that what you were given?
This is all I got.
This is what you were given?
Yeah.
Weren't given that.
No, I didn't get this, no, it was in the book.
Second.
I move to reject all the bids.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion to reject the bids. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is executive session, entertaining motion for the city council to enter into executive session as permitted by South Dakota CL 1-25-2, parentheses 4, and 120-25-2, parentheses 3, legal matters for contract negotiations or negotiating with employees or employee representatives. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Carries.